Here at MoveIQ, we have a keen interest in how technology and innovation can help improve the process of buying and selling homes in the UK for businesses and consumers alike. We know from experience that not all facets of the US property market travel well to the UK, but over the last few years there has been a dramatic shift in how property is being transacted over in the US, and it's down to a new type of business known as iBuyers. Joining me here today to discuss this trend and how it may be about to transform the UK property market as well is Phillipa Legg, Head of Operations from the Guild of Professional Estate Agents. Phillipa, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Phil.
I'm really intrigued in this. Can you just tell me how this iBuyer process works? What's involved?
Yeah, of course. So the iBuyer very much takes technology along with financial backing in the US and looks to speed up the process of selling a home. And there's a few scenarios where that might be applicable. For example, where a customer needs to sell quickly, or where the chain has broken down and they're looking to fix that chain. And they are the main two areas, alongside also the fast sale of a property, so that might support the valuation process.
Tell me how it works in kind of practice. I've got the general gist of it, but let's dive into a bit more detail.
So in practice, it uses technology to generate an instant offer for a customer. And that uses data, so it's aggregating data that we have access to and providing the customer with an offer on their property.
Okay.
That's likely to be a range initially,
Yep.
and then going down to an offer ahead of agreeing a final price with that customer. And the way it works is it will always buy the property at a slightly below market value price.
Yeah.
And then that is how the iBuyer sort of process works. So that's where they make their margin.
Okay.
Whilst very small, because they work on a volume basis, they're buying the property slightly below market value.
In return, the consumer gets guarantees, they get swift transactions,
Absolutely.
no concerns from that.
Yeah, so the focus really is around a fast sale that's secure, but also providing that certainty. So there are some circumstances, and this is all from our perspective around outcome. So what is the best outcome for the customer? And in a lot of scenarios, the outcome is there's an end goal, whether that might be a dream property that they're looking to move to.
Yeah.
And that's where this kind of product can really help.
Well, don't they say about a third of transactions of offers never actually materialise or reach an exchange of contracts? So if somebody's trying to get to a new school or a new job or married or baby or, you know, all the normal reasons that people move home, there can be some quite kind of cut-off points that the deal needs to happen by, or it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And interestingly, one of our property buying partners that we've been working with, so that's the company that buy the property as part of this process.
Yeah.
Last year across the UK, they had 45,000 leads. Interestingly, that shows an interest in consumers looking into this kind of service. But actually, on the whole, we've seen across the US market that people aren't looking for that either or. They're really looking for both technology to help them, but also the support of an agent to guide them through this process.
Okay. So I can see that it would help consumers. How does it help businesses and the agents on the ground?
So I think there's a number of ways. From an agent perspective, it's something that sets them apart from the others. So agents that have access to this can offer some certainty to a vendor around their next steps. I suppose the other bit for me from a business perspective is that holding the chain together. So when we look at properties that fall through, like we said earlier, a third of properties do fall through. Quite often that goes back to the beginning. So they're starting the whole process again. And this provides the ability to either hold the chain together while we're waiting to find another buyer for the property, or alternatively, get that sale done within 21 days to meet the outcome that customer's trying to achieve.
It's quite attractive. I mean, I'm not convinced that all US methods and transactions do come across well, but it sounds as though it's gone down quite well in the US and it's been relatively successful, albeit fairly young still.
Definitely. And I think for me there's a large educational shift. So this is all about the outcome-driven process. So what is the outcome that the customer's trying to achieve? And then is this the right product to be offering the customer? And actually, whilst this might not get the highest price, if their outcome is driven around speed or certainty, or like the example you gave earlier where the customer might need to make sure they're in a property to get their children into a school, then actually this can be the perfect solution for that customer.
And I know as the Guild, you only have one member per town, don't you? So I guess offering this by some way would be a point of difference.
Absolutely. And I think as well that also provides us the ability to make sure that we've really done that educational piece. So we see the Guild agents as some of the most qualified agents, and we take a lot of responsibility around their training and how they trade. And I think actually this process of education and this platform, you've got to make sure it's the right agent using it to get that correct outcome for the customer.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and you're right, there'll be, because it's quite advanced and forward thinking, there's going to need to be a lot of assistance.
Definitely.
To make it run. But without going into the sort of nitty gritty of it, would a consumer have the ability to choose via a Guild agent to sell via the traditional method as well as iBuyer? Could you play them both?
Yeah, so I think there's an interesting conversation with agents around whether this can form part of their pitches right up front with a consumer. So there's two parts for me. The first part is, as part of the valuation process, this also not only sets them apart but provides an element of certainty. So one thing we don't talk about up front, very rarely, is that properties do fall through. And actually when we then get to that stage in the journey, we then have that conversation. Actually, this could provide the ability for you to have that conversation up front, but actually provide the reassurance that there's a product available through that agent to make sure that if you need it, it's there.
45,000 leads, but that's without any marketing or kind of platform behind it. That's a big number.
Yeah, so that example of the 45,000 leads from the property buying partner last year as an example actually is without the backing of an estate agency network, but also without the backing of a substantial marketing spend and plan.
Phillipa, let me ask, haven't we seen this kind of thing somewhere before, and the chain break and the below market value purchases, and there are versions of it out there, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the difference here with this iBuying product and what we're talking about today is very much around the use of data, but also the use of agents. So here in this process, we're thinking about how do we make sure we get the best outcome for the customer, but also make sure this works as a business, as an iBuyer. And that's where this is all about, how does this work as a win-win for both the seller and the iBuyer. And it won't be successful unless that is the case.
So you say it's a bit of a trend in the US now, and certainly the numbers seem to support that, but is it a threat to conventional agency here?
So the process we're looking at is all about having the agent involved. So whilst the iBuyer technology platform is there to support the process, actually an agent will always be involved. So that agent is hand-holding the consumer. And I mentioned earlier about we've moved away from this either-or place. Now we're looking at how do we use both technology and people to get the best outcome for that customer. And in this example that we're talking about, it's about making sure that the Guild agent is involved, not only with the upfront sale and supporting with the iBuyer process, but then also been engaged in the resale then and working with the property buying partner. So really involving them right from the start to the finish, rather than removing them from this process.
And the Guild is therefore central to that coming on?
Absolutely, yes.
I'm sure people will be interested where the money comes from. It's big volume, it's low margin, but it's big volume. There's an awful lot of money on the table. Whose money is it?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. So the property buying partners obviously have funding that they use to buy the properties. In some of the scenarios, they sell those properties straight on, and as part of this, they don't do any work to those. They're selling them on as they receive them. In some scenarios, though, they will keep them if the yield is right and have them as rental properties for their business. And that very much varies depending on location and the property type.
Okay. I mean, it strikes me as an outsider just learning about it today that the risks are quite high for those iBuyers, because they're buying a property at slightly less than market value, but they are then going to need to sell it in a chain. Absolutely. And all the complexities that come with that. There's going to be some heavy reliance on the numbers.
Definitely, and I think actually that's one of the benefits of working with us to have the guild involved. So we've got agents right across the UK and they're there to support with that process. So they're involved from the beginning to the end. And I think that probably is an element of reassurance for those property buying partners because they're working with us through the whole element of the process.
You implied it's a volume business here. What do you know what kind of volume is being dealt with in America?
Yeah, so in the US market, one of the companies that was set up in 2014 have now got 1,800 employees, but they're also seeing 500,000 requests for offers.
Okay. I mean, 500,000 requests, easy to request an offer. I wonder how many actual transactions are being done. But nevertheless, if a business has got 1,800 employees, they are doing some serious numbers.
Absolutely, and if you think they've only been around since 2014, so actually the growth there and the number of employees I think shows the potential in this kind of business.
So you telling me, Phillipa, this is the cutting edge stuff, this is absolute forefront of technology and property dealing?
I hope so, and I think actually the use of both technology and the agents is a really interesting mix. And as we said earlier, it's all about the outcome for the customer. And I think if using technology to support that process helps the consumer, then it absolutely is the right thing.
Speed is of the essence in a lot of these property deals. It's not all about the money. It's about some of the guarantee. But tell me, how is the Guild involved? What do you do?
So the Guild are very excited to be announcing that we will be launching the UK's first agent-backed iBuyer platform, and that will be called Offer Hive. So we'll be launching that at our conference, and then we'll be progressing forward into the year and launching that across our Guild agents.
So that will be the first iBuyer in the country?
Absolutely.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
It'll be really interesting seeing how it all pans out. But
thank you.
Certainly an exciting time.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you.